rock and roll train. The latest episode of AC/DC Beyond the Thunder leaves the station now. With your thunderous hosts, Kurt Squires, Greg Ferguson, and Eric Cube. Are you ready?
Welcome, Thunder listeners. I'm your host, Kurt Squires, here partying it up with co-pilot Greg Ferguson and sound commander Eric Kielb. This is the podcast where extraordinary fans get to make a toast to this extraordinary little band called AC/DC. But for this episode, Greg and Eric really pushed me to consider involving our listeners to participate in a top 10 list rather than our traditional one-on-one interview with high-profile guests. So I thank them for mixing things up a bit because it's a nice departure.
That's right. The countdown begins at AC/DC Beyond the Thunder. And during this episode, we ask our listeners to choose their personal top 10 bands that harness the sound of AC/DC.
Yes, and to do so, we not only asked you, our faithful listeners, to vote, but we also reached out to a few of our previous guests who's appeared on the podcast. And we think you guys did a pretty darn good job. In all, there were over 75 bands who made the list, representing 20 different countries, but only 10 could make our final tally.
Wow, that's amazing. So it's also important to note that these are not top 10 bands who've been influenced by AC/DC. So you won't be seeing Anthrax or Guns N' Roses, Foo Fighters, Metallica, and even Stereophonics. They will not be on this list. However, the bands who've been inspired by AC/DC and also took the sound of AC/DC will be on this top 10 list.
Okay, so who did make the list of the bands utilizing AC/DC sound as a not-so-secret formula and have been clearly influenced by the Thunder Down Under? Some bands embrace the comparison, others get a little prickly around this territory. Either way, it's all win-win to us. Okay, are you ready to stand up and be counted?
For what you are about to receive.
Okay, at number 10, our AC/DC Beyond the Thunder listeners voted in a group that not only hails from Melbourne, Australia, who share a striking similarity in their musical style to AC/DC, but also, like Angus and Malcolm, have two founding brothers in the band, Nick and Chris Sester. They may be a little more dynamic in their writing, but their crunchy guitar tones, driving rhythms, and anthemic choruses smack of AC/DC, who, by the way, got their name from a Sir Paul McCartney track. So being a huge Beatles fan, Eric, can you guess the name of this top 10 band?
Temporary secretary?
Close.
Secretary.
Close. Our number 10 pick is Jet.
Woo, Jet.
Oh, all
So,
right.
yes. So back in 2001, these fellow Aussies got their break when Apple used Are You Gonna Be My Girl for an iPod ad. You guys remember
right.
that?
You bet.
So I think Apple actually stole the idea from their own music video, their whole campaign. So Alice Cooper called these guys one of the last great rock and roll bands. And although they've been on and off again over the past few years, Jet received several awards for their work, including a Grammy nomination. They've toured extensively alongside the Stones and Oasis. In fact, I actually caught Jet in a little club in New York City in the mid-2000s. And when I heard them play this particular track live, I thought, yep, there's some AC/DC DNA in these guys. So let's see what you think. Cue it up, Eric. Here's Cold Hard Bitch from Jet. there's definitely some AC/DC going on there.
Yeah.
Well chosen, guys. So number 10, Jet. There was a quote from Nick Sester, lead singer of Jet, who said, "We're not trying to copy anyone, but we've always been fans of AC/DC. And I think that if you're a fan of that music and you start a rock and roll band, it's kind of inevitable that you're going to sound similar. So not a bad problem to have in our book. So there you have it. Number 10, Jet.
So the cool thing about this top 10 list is that it's truly global. It's easy to think in terms of bands that are really well known, but our listeners did their homework. They dug deep, serving up this Swiss band for number 9 slot, Sideburn. Formed in 1997, believe it or not, this is the first time that these guys have ever been on our radar. I don't know about you guys. Have you heard of Sideburn?
No, I have not.
Nope.
But I'm glad to be introduced to them, so thank you, listeners, for introducing us to Sideburn. Their songs have been featured in shows like 24, Wolverine starring Hugh Jackman, and they've also toured with some of the biggest bands around, including Kiss, Motorhead, Def Leppard, Dio. I mean, let's take a listen. Here is Frontline off their album Electrify.
Little Angus Young picking right there.
Totally.
Oh, yeah. There's a Gretsch over there in the left channel. A little Malcolmish.
Bob in there.
I like it.
It's great, great tone.
Standing to the strain of the front line, folded on the landmine, leaning under the cannonball for the nation's core.
Great voice.
Gears of war.
As you can hear, this probably could be plugged into any AC/DC album. But Sideburn does more than just recycle AC/DC riffs. They have their own swagger. They've been doing this for almost a quarter century.
Yeah, that sounds like a long-lost AC/DC demo track to me.
Totally.
Sounds awesome. All right, are we ready to move on to number 8?
Let's do it.
Okay. At number 8, we have Dynamite, a Swedish band that takes their moniker from one of AC/DC's most famous songs, TNT, and they are 4-piece rockers formed in 2012 by frontman Mattis Carlson, who cited AC/DC's High Voltage as one of his favorite rock albums.
Wow.
The band have since shared festival stage with The Darkness in Europe. Here's a little stick of Dynamite for your taste buds. This is Talk is Cheap off Lock and Load.
Talk is cheap.
Sounds like High Voltage.
I was wondering when you were coming home, why you smell of a different cologne. Saw in her face, wonder what he knows. Will the pattern appears angels? Your decision proves it. When you run and do this, it's gonna take some balls to tell me what you've done, and I'm quite sure you ain't got none. Your head is full of lies. I can tell it in your eyes. You're talking.
Pretty explosive there, Dynamite. What do you guys think?
Very cool. A little
do you
mix
think?
of Brian and Bon, I think.
It's
I think you're
interesting
right.
too. Yeah, for sure.
I'm upset we don't know these bands.
I know.
What have we been doing?
I don't know.
So from Sweden, Dynamite is been around since 2012, like we said, and although the mainstay bandmates Mattis and Jonas have since blown up,
Blown up?
blown up. The band continues on, announcing an all-new lineup this past New Year's Eve. So they're still rocking.
Does that mean they quit?
I think so.
Oh,
Yeah.
man. bummer.
Dynamite.
Yeah.
Dynamite.
Bang.
All right. At number 7, our AC/DC Beyond the Thunder listeners anointed a band that I have heard of. I mean, it is kind of cool. These bands are from all over the globe. So you listeners, you did deep digging. I'm really impressed. So, in fact, on number 7, I actually owned this debut album called Cool from the Wire. It was released in 1988 because it truly sounded like the second coming of Bon Scott with Angus Young right there by his side. These guys are originally from Erie, Pennsylvania. Eventually, they scored a deal with Atlantic, which was AC/DC's label at the time. And they landed decent airplay on MTV for their video, Oh, Ruby. I don't know if you guys remember.
Totally. Yeah.
Yes. And of course, Ruby is a woman lovingly referenced during AC/DC's track, Go Down. So see if this doesn't win prize for Best Bon Scott Sound-alike of all time, guys. Here's Ruby from Dirty Looks.
Ruby's got class when she shakes her ass, and Ruby's got the sting of a diamond ring, and Ruby's got the legs that'll make you beg, and got the things that'll make you take. She's got a car that'll go so far, and she's screaming, yes you are. She's good, understood. Everybody in the neighborhood, oh Ruby. Hey Ruby.
Yeah, you can hear a little call and response like Angus and Bon used to do, which is pretty cool.
Very cool.
It's been said, what's that?
I think I saw these guys live.
What?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Who'd they open up for?
I don't know. It's probably like Cleveland, Ohio, Peabody's Down Under. I don't know.
Okay.
Would it have been like White Lion or
That's the right genre for sure.
Warrant?
They were in the
It
hair
was
metal category
Winger.
for sure.
It was a W band. I think I've seen these guys live.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, it's been said that if AC/DC had a rebellious little brother, it would be Dirty Looks. So at number 7, that's Dirty Looks. But with the rise of grunge, the group broke up around 1993, and they tried different incarnations like most bands in the 90s. And although he tried to jumpstart the band again, Ostergaard sadly died from liver failure in 2011 at the age of 47.
Ooh, that's early. Man, rock and roll, man. It can be hard on you.
That's rough.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on to number 6. All right, and this is a group from Barcelona, Spain. They go by the name of 77, and it's formed by yet another band of brothers.
Oh.
Armand and LG Valletta. And I bet you can't guess what year they were formed.
1877.
Close.
I'm going to say
close. No.
1977.
Even closer, Kurt.
Oh.
Even closer. Nope. These guys were formed in 2006. The band's name 77 actually refers to the year 1977, which is considered to be a significant year in rock history, including AC/DC's mighty Let There Be Rock.
Let There Be Rock, of course.
Yeah. Not only do they draw inspiration from AC/DC in their sound, but also their song titles like High Decibels, Maximum Rock and Roll, Bright Gloom. They're just as energetic as their dynamic live performances. And here's a little sampler of 77 with, it's got to be the best title ever of a song, Big Smoker Pig.
Angus move.
Yeah,
Definitely, yeah. Some shaker. I don't hear that in too many AC/DC songs.
And when you picked the song, Kurt, I had never heard the song before, so
I hadn't either.
yeah, thanks for introducing me to it. It's great. It's a great little tune.
Yeah.
We want to give a shout out to all our listeners who voted for their top 10 bands who sound like AC/DC. And since only 10 could make it, let's salute some of those honorable mentions throughout the show that were so close to making the cut, including The Angels, Bonafide, Cinderella, Junkyard, and of course, Jackal.
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 Yeah, in fact, AC/DC Beyond the Thunder has recently featured frontman from Jackal, Jesse James Dupree. That was earlier this season. So if you haven't gotten around to checking out that episode, please check it out.
Yes.
Okay, now that we've cracked the top 5, we're going to go back down under for a second time to talk about another Australian powerhouse, often compared to AC/DC for their bluesy hard rock style, gritty vocals, mirroring the raw intensity of AC/DC's early years, but often viewed as more underground, maintaining a cult following. They're formed in Sydney in 1976. Frontman Angry Anderson is the last remaining original member of the Australian Rock and Roll Hall of Famers Rose Tattoo.
Cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, not only did Bon and Angus used to jam live on stage with Rose Tattoo, but the band's first 4 albums were also produced by Harry Vanda and George Young.
No kidding.
Very cool.
So there are many connections to AC/DC and Rose Tattoo besides their sound. AC/DC drummer Phil Rudd and Angry Anderson were once bandmates in the early 70s outfit Buster Brown.
That's right.
In fact, we heard that after departing AC/DC in 1983, Anderson confirmed it was true that Rudd rehearsed to join Rose Tattoo, but eventually said, not ready.
Oh, wow.
I was going to do the accent, but
That was pretty good accent.
I saved away from it. And in 2017, AC/DC bassist Mark Evans joined the Tattoo and remains part of the band and a key player today.
Very cool.
Yeah.
We need to get Mark Evans on this show.
Yeah.
That would be great.
So coming in at number 5, here's Rose Tattoo and Man About Town from their 2018 Blood Brothers reissue. This is a cool tune.
Very cool, too.
Now the blood's been spilled. We must make our pact. Declare ourselves for who we are. That's a cold hard fact. Eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. And that's the game we play. You step on me and I'll step all over you. It's always gonna be that way. Don't push your luck. It's a long way down. Now you're dealing with the man in this town. I'm a king without a crown. But I won't sit down. You can't pull me down. I'm the man in this town.
Pretty rockin'. What do you guys think of that one?
Those guys sound so tough. I love it.
Yeah.
Just raw.
Just
Definitely.
moves right along. It's so fun.
Yep.
All right, Eric. I mentioned some honorable mentions. So what else do you have on that list?
Yeah, here's a few other that didn't quite cut the mustard. 42 Decibel. Have you guys? I never heard. Do you,
I don't know
I
42
I don't-
Decibel.
I
Don't know them.
Yep. Y&T.
Yes.
Of course. Yeah.
Little insider information here. Kurt and I often celebrate Valentine's Day
Together.
going to see Y&T. And
Going to a Y&T show.
they
yeah,
just
every
happen to
Valentine's.
be in North Carolina around that
Sounds
time
perfect to
most
me.
years.
Yeah.
It's very, very bromantic.
Love those guys.
Yep. Next up, the Casanovas,
Okay.
Nice.
Thunder,
Ah.
and a Kurt fave, Accept.
Oh, I love Accept.
Oh, Wolf Hoffman. What a guitar player.
Amazing
man.
guitar
Yeah,
player.
he's incredible.
And one of the reasons why I got into Accept because I thought they had the sound of AC/DC. So
Yep.
I love Accept. In fact, Accept was my second show ever.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah. They
Nice.
were. Okay, are we at number 4?
We are.
We're number
Damn.
4. We're getting down there. First off, I got to put a huge asterisk on this one, guys, because although this band does not exactly sound like AC/DC on the whole, certainly not their entire career, there is one album that our listeners could not ignore, which is why you're seeing these British rockers on our top 10 list. And you can solely thank AC/DC fanboy and producer Rick Rubin for persuading this band to pump out an album called Electric. It was filled with some of the best AC/DC style riffs of all time. I loved it. I remember Rubin commenting on this technique by saying, when I'm producing a hard rock band, I try to create albums that sound as powerful as Highway to Hell. Whether it's The Cult or Red Hot Chili Peppers, I apply the same basic formula. Keep it sparse, make the guitar parts more rhythmic. It sounds simple, but what AC/DC did is almost impossible to duplicate. You guys like this album?
Yes,
it's one of
absolutely.
my favorites. I remember hearing it for the first time in high school and immediately went out and bought it on CD and just cranked it in my car. And such a great, the whole album together is such a great piece of work. It's amazing. And I think it's definitely the Rick Rubin effect.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. In fact, Cult guitarist Billy Duffy said, I owe a great debt to AC/DC. I saw them in 77 with Bon Scott in Manchester and was actually able to hit Angus's guitar with my hand while Bon carried him through the auditorium. Wow. He said the Electric album tapped into that honesty, groove, and simplicity. So that's pretty cool. So coming in at
Very
number
cool.
4, here's the Cult's Wildflower from Electric, which even Billy Duffy will tell you sounds a whole lot like AC/DC's rock and roll singer.
Hey you're a wild honey child. I'm out of control. Every time you are near me, I'm a wolf child, baby, and I'm howling for you. My heart beats faster. Hey, I'm overpowered. Wow. I'm a wolf child, girl. I will feel wild. Star of my dreams, I'm a beautiful thing, yeah.
So good. So good.
Unbelievable.
So awesome.
So, by the way, did you know Billy Duffy, the lead guitarist for the Cult, was there that night at the Music Machine on the evening that Bon Scott passed away?
Wow.
Oh,
No.
wow.
Yeah, he actually saw Bon come in with Alistair Kinnear, which is the guy who was with Bon when he passed away. He said he saw him go backstage and Kinnear with him, and eventually Bon's lifeless body was found just hours later. Crazy. So. And as Greg and Eric referenced earlier, we have a few more honorable mentions here that did not make our top 10 list, but definitely need to be heard. The Donnas.
Oh yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
all-female
yeah.
group.
Cool. Yeah.
Awesome AC/DC sound. Hardbone, Buck Cherry, Kicks. You remember those guys?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a band called ABCD who they kind of cross over into tribute territory, actually, if you check those guys out. I think they're from Sweden. I'm not sure. But my own personal favorite is a band called Nevada Beach from New Hampshire, your native state, Greg.
I've never seen Nevada Beach.
I don't think
this is
anyone-
this is all new to me.
Nobody knows about Nevada Beach but me, I think. But if you please Google these guys, you will not be disappointed. I love Nevada Beach.
I'm going to go check them out for sure. Okay, often dubbed the European AC/DC, here's another Swiss band in our countdown.
Wow.
And along with AC/DC is also celebrating their 50th anniversary this year.
Wow.
So, wow, they've been around for a while.
I had no idea.
And you know who it is? Coming in at number 3? It's Crocus.
Yes.
Founded in 1974 by Chris Von Rohr and Tommy Kiefer, this one-time progressive band changed their style completely after seeing AC/DC in concert in the late 70s.
Oh, I didn't know that. So they were a progressive band.
And they popped over to an AC/DC sound. I mean, that's influence right there.
Totally.
Yeah. There's actually a few other connections that are worth mentioning here. After the tragic passing of AC/DC singer Bon Scott in 1980, the production company that worked with the band asked vocalist Mark Storace to audition for AC/DC. And believe it or not, guys, he passed on the offer.
Oh, man.
Not just to be loyal to his mates, but he was pretty committed to Crocus at the time.
I heard that story. I can't believe it, actually.
How about that?
Yeah, well, it gets better. In 2016, Storace admitted that if AC/DC were to call again, he'd definitely accept the chance to audition. I believe his name was on the list of singers to audition, but he never did. And if you're interested in hearing about who did audition to fill in for Brian, check out season 2, episode 2 with Lee Robinson.
Yes.
We had that whole conversation with Lee about that. So it's a good episode.
Yes.
All right, and back to Crocus. If you listen to tracks like Bedside Radio, I'm on the Run, or even a song called Shy Kid, which opens with lyrics, "It's a lonely evening in a lonely town. I ain't too old to cry now when a woman gets me down." And, that's kind of almost verbatim to AC/DC's Ride On.
Oh, my God, yes.
Yeah.
So when compared to Bon Scott, Storace said, of course, it's a big compliment, but, you got to realize that we have a bit of pride. The influences we had and the vocal similarities probably came from the same influences.
Right.
So I think what he's saying is, I brought my own thing to it. We were all listening to the same music at the time.
Right.
So, of course, there's going to be some similarities there.
Yeah.
And although they've played on the same bill as AC/DC, it's also been said that Crocus was not asked to be on the 1984 Monsters of Rock bill because AC/DC felt that they were just too damn close to their sound.
Wow.
Kind of makes sense,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I understand that.
Yeah. So Crocus announced their retirement and would embark on the farewell tour, but COVID put a stop to that. And so they have yet to follow through with that promise. And let's hope they do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love those guys.
Yep.
They're one of my favorite bands.
Here's one of our favorite
A quote that when Crocus recorded that album, One Vice at a Time, Chris Von Rohr described it as the album AC/DC never made, which is totally true.
That's funny.
Do you know what year that song came out?
Let's see. It came out in 1982. So,
Is it 82?
yep.
Yeah.
When did For Those About the Rock come out?
81. So they're like, that sounds good.
I mean, when I think of Crocus, well, that song is definitely reminds me of AC/DC. I mean, I think of the Headhunter album that came after that, and that was just like Screaming in the Night is like such a mainstay power ballad of that early MTV era.
Yeah.
Ballroom Blitz, like
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
killer band. I didn't know how many cover songs they did, so I've got the discography up here.
They do a lot of cover songs.
After the next single in 82 after Long Stick Goes Boom was American Woman.
Yep.
So take
Yep.
that, Lenny Kravitz and the Guess Who.
Yep.
And then Eat the Rich. I remember that song. That was a good song. But I don't think it's a Ballroom Blitz is a cover song.
Yep.
School's Out.
Yeah. School's
Yeah.
Out.
Anyway, yep.
I saw them open for Priest, and they basically did all cover songs, and they destroyed. Yeah, they really won the crowd over. They did Rainy Day Women from Bob Dylan. I mean, they
Oh,
did
wow.
all
Oh, my
covers.
God.
Yeah.
That would be so fun.
Yeah, they were good.
All right, guys, we're getting down to the wire here. At number 2, we have a band that formed back in 1988 from Van Nuys, California. In his book, The Youngs, the brothers who built AC/DC, author Jesse Fink, who also name drops AC/DC Beyond the Thunder,
Yes, he did.
said, more than any other band, Rhino Bucket has awakened the ghost of Bon Scott. His spirit lives in their music. They're more AC/DC than AC/DC. And that's saying something.
Oh man, that's quite a quote.
Yeah. Singer and rhythm guitarist George DeLevo has in fact strip mined AC/DC like no other, with their no frills, no nonsense, no ballads approach to straight ahead rock and roll. Even former AC/DC drummer Simon Wright joined the band and appeared on the 1994 album Pain, all of which you can hear Simon talking about more in one of our season 3 episodes.
Yes, love Simon.
Rhino Bucket's music has been featured in films such as Wayne's World and The Wrestler, and even Stephen King is a fan, who posted on his social media, topping off the weekend with some Rhino Bucket, and I've got that sucker turned up to 10.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's cool.
In 2018, George announced that he was leaving the band with their final show at the Rainbow, but who knows, we may have one more one-night stand with these rockers. At your highly coveted number 2 spot, here's the first song of their very first album back in 1990. It's the self-titled debut from Rhino Bucket and One Night Stand.
Nice.
All
tune.
right, I think I got to put that into my mix for the
Yeah,
weekend,
yeah.
just like Stephen King. Crank it. That was awesome.
Rhino Bucket, so cool. And I love the fact that Simon Wright was in that band and he talked about it a little bit. Really cool tune, really cool band. So anyway, I'm really thrilled with the listeners and their choices here, especially because we don't know a lot of them.
I know. Thanks for everyone for contributing your top 10 lists. It was fun to kind of get them, look through them, and kind of come up with our top 10 list for this episode. It's good to know that you guys are out there. It's good to know that you're listening, enjoying all this AC/DC content that we're putting out there.
And I love that they're from countries all over the world, these bands that are influenced.
Yeah, and introducing us to new music, which is always great.
Yeah. Hey, we want to let listeners know that we had an awesome interview with your number one pick from today's episode that lasted an additional 25 or 30 minutes or so of unheard material, too long for this episode. But if you want exclusive access to the entire interview, simply go to beyondthethunder.com, hit the charity button, and donate as little as $1, which will go to the Nordoff Robbins Music Therapy and Make-A-Wish Foundations. And we'll send the link of the entire interview directly to you. That's beyondthethunder.com, and hit the charity button. And now, ladies and gentlemen, drum roll, please. Number one. It's time to announce your number one band that harnesses the sound of AC/DC like no other, as voted by our AC/DC Beyond the Thunder podcast listeners. Is it because the group hails from Australia and this style of music is simply in their DNA? Is it because they were founded by two brothers? Or is it simply because they continue to raise the flag of music featuring no ballads, no acoustic guitars, and no keyboards? Here's a band that came out of the gates running wild with several ARIA Music Award nominations, not to mention a Best Debut Album from Metal Hammer and winner for the Best New Band from our favorite magazine, Classic Rock. Yeah. And they're still rocking their hearts out as we speak, all the way from Warrnambool. Is that how you say that? Warrnambool?
Warrnambool.
AC/DC Beyond the Thunder welcomes lead vocalist and lead guitarist Joel O'Keefe from Airborne. Joel, welcome to the show and congratulations.
How you guys doing?
Nice to finally meet you.
Good to meet you too.
This one's a little different because it's based on listeners voting for bands who they feel have kind of carried the torch forward utilizing AC/DC's blueprint, you know? So, and they voted Airborne number one, which is pretty cool.
That is awesome.
Amazing.
When I got that in the email, I thought, yeah, that's pretty bloody cool. You know, like when we started as a band. So first, thanks to all your listeners for voting for us. And when we started as a band, you know, the bands that were on the radio and stuff like that at the time, it was all Blink 182 and shit like that. Really, like it was just kind of like, no, it is. Well, that's how we felt at the time. We were like, what is this shit? You know, like why doesn't anyone in school want to rock? We couldn't understand why music didn't have that. We were listening to AC/DC. We listened to Billy Thorpe, Rose Tattoo, the Angels. I'm sure your listeners would know those bands from Australia.
Sure.
Screaming Jets is another one. Kings of the Sun, The Poor. Like Australia has this Aussie rock thing, which is it's very meat and potatoes, where we took kind of bits from America and bits from the UK, whatever was the loudest bits that came through the radio. Like if you took The Who, you know, and you took and ZZ Top, and you took you know, Paul Rogers, then you would get like from Bad Company, you get this kind of like you get this Aussie rock kind of thing, and it's just that's what we wanted to play, and that's what we wanted to listen to. So we would take our stuff to school and we play and do that, and it's just kind of like the same thing. We've just been doing it ever since, and it's
that.
And it's just flying the flag for Australian rock and roll. It's just so much fun, and we love it. Yeah, obviously we love it. We get, you know, we go to we get on it. You know, we you know, we go to gigs and stuff, and we go to as many gigs as we play. Is what I'm trying to say.
The Poor opened up for AC/DC at one point, didn't they?
They did on the Ball Breaker tour.
Yeah. That was like your first show, right?
That was my first AC/DC show, correct? And
Yeah.
I was listening to the Poor at the time. I had their cassette tape.
Yeah.
And just being such a kid, I didn't even know that they were, you know, a support band. I didn't know there was support bands. I didn't even know that they were going to be doing it. And when they ran out, because I was only like 8 years old or something, So then when they come running out, I was like, oh, that's that band I've been listening to. I love them.
Wow.
And I believe I got to watch 45 minutes of The Paw in 1996, I think it was. Right in Melbourne.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And as a kid, when you're a kid, those things, when you're young, that just like it changes your whole life. So we're very influenced by The Paw as well.
Oh, totally. While we're talking about your early childhood, I had an early childhood question for you. After seeing the Thunderstruck video on TV, you asked for a cassette of AC/DC's Razor's Edge for your 6th or 7th birthday, which is a present from your mom. And that was the very first album you ever owned, right?
Yeah. First album I ever owned was Razor's Edge.
Wow. And first off, cool mom, right?
Yeah, thanks, mom. Thanks, mom. Like, and it wasn't just a cassette tape that I wanted. It was also a blue singlet, and I also wanted to shave my hair, to cut my hair so I could play. And then I wanted to wear the blue singlet to be like Malcolm or Cliff in that video, and then or Brian. And
Right.
also there was an old hat in the house. We had this hat stand, and it was like one of those hats that kind of like Brian wears. And then, then after that, it was like, I've got to get a guitar. I've got to get the red guitar. So I wanted to be the whole band, basically, like at the age of, 6 or 7 or whatever it was. And, but when that clip comes on, even to this day, it doesn't matter where I am. It's just, it flips a trigger.
Yeah.
Or something like that. I could be in a bar. I could be out in public walking the dog. It comes on and I just, I'll do duck walks on the bar. Like I'll get going, I'll just get into it.
I might argue that might be the greatest AC/DC video. It could very well be.
To me, it is, like it's just, how can you not put it on and not want to rock?
Right.
The whole place is rocking.
Right. So after seeing them, you're such a young kid being exposed to AC/DC. When you saw them live, was that the moment that truly changed your life to commit to rock and roll as a career?
Yeah, I think, look, at the time, I was going to school and things like that, but I was taking my guitar to school. I was on that path. I was already on that path. But then when I saw that, I couldn't believe I was breathing the same air as Angus Young in the room. Like it was just, I was obsessed, and it was just like I would draw AC/DC logos on all my books, and to see that come alive, it was the greatest. It's still the greatest show I've ever seen. I'd never seen a show in my life or anything like that before, but to see that pure, like it was like magic or something. It was like a whole other universe, and I just thought, I don't want to live out. I don't want to leave the venue. I want to live in this universe if it can go forever. Like, if we can stay in this place, this feeling, this whole thing, and when you get older, you get on the road and you tour and you drink and you get into it, you sort of forget a few things because, you hit it pretty hard for a few years out there.
Yeah.
But one thing I do remember is that gig. And I remember the fans going to the show. I remember the smiles, the happiness. And then when the lights went dark, it was the loudest, like the whistles and the roar.
Yeah.
And then when the ball starts swinging, and then
Yes.
it was just the best thing. And I had to go back to school the next day. And I didn't listen to it. My ears rang for 3 days after that. And I could hear the riffs in my head.
Yes.
Like I could hear ball breaker going, da, da. It was like, it was high pitched. It was like the ringing sound.
Right.
What's funny was when I went back to school, girls didn't notice me before this day. They didn't. And then when I went back to school the next day, they said, all these little harem came around me, little harem of girls. They said, did you leave school early to go see AC/DC? And I said, yeah. I went to AC/DC. Yeah. I got the shirt on and I've got everything. Like, oh, wow, you're cool. I'm like, oh, hang on. There's something else to this rock and roll thing. It's not just playing guitar. And what rock, the girls take notice. I was like, that's interesting.
Give you some cred right there.
Yes. It was one of the greatest adventures I've been on in my life. I reckon that show down. It was down in Melbourne. We live in Melbourne now, but we had to drive from Warrnambool down and then back that night. That was 3 hours each way.
You said you were diagnosed with ADHD. You just found out in the last, 5 or 6 years, which you said really helped you out and put in perspective why you were so hyperactive.
Like, let the rock bit that Malcolm plays.
Right.
Like,
My God.
Yeah. So I would get the PA and I only play one side and listen to that, and then just really try and learn everything that they're doing and get into it. But of course, yeah, like it made total sense as to why I wanted to try and be the whole band, like and do that when I was
Yeah,
a kid. But it also helped. It just helped with just shit going forward. Like, stop making up new lyrics live. Just sing the ones that you've written.
Oh, you said you couldn't figure out if you wanted to be Angus or Brian, so you do both essentially on stage, which is, kind of awesome.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is, they look like they're both having so much fun. That's the thing about AC/DC, like it's not like one of those sort of bands that stare at their feet, go, "Ooh, hate my mummy" sort of music. Like, I love my mum. She gave me the AC/DC cassette.
Yeah, right.
But it's like it's good times. They're all smiling, having fun. So you can, and when you sort of figure out a few things with guitar and stuff like that, you sort of go, oh, you just want to have fun. And like,
Yeah.
I didn't really want to play football or footy, or call it footy in Australia, but I didn't really want to do sport. And I was
Yeah.
like, I want to do this.
Right.
It just looks like so much fun. So it just kind of ended up that way.
Speaking of sports, I think when I first heard Airborne, I was playing Xbox with my son, and it was either Tony Hawk or NHL or something like that, and I heard Airborne. Is that correct?
Yeah, we were on the skateboard game. Yeah.
Okay. And then it wasn't until I saw the film I Love You, Beth Cooper, and I totally took notice for the first time. Like, this band rocks as hard as AC/DC. They get it.
Some people like to make all the rules and tell others what to do. They make it their way, so they always win, and the others always lose. Street gangs and madmen, how they wage their private wars. Hey, their bangers closed, their hearts are frozen, their wives are hands with hoes. I'll sit and spin for a little while. If it's the end of days, I'm going out in style. Too much, too young, too fast. I'm gonna drink it out while it lasts. Too much, too young, too fast.
Within this top 10 list of bands that our listeners have chosen, several of these bands contain brothers. And with your younger brother, Ryan, sitting behind the drum kit, where does his affinity for AC/DC fall compared to yours?
Well, he loves Phil Rudd. I mean, it's got to be obvious.
Yeah.
Like he in terms of the two drummers he loves the most, I would say would be Kenny Arnoff and
Oh, yeah.
Phil Rudd. And like hard hitters, but like Kenny Arnoff, great drummer.
He's like a chameleon. He plays for everybody.
Yeah, we saw him as a kid. He was out with John Fogerty, but
Okay.
we'd seen him before then, and we're just fascinated by the way he would just power through like that. I think Ryan's definitely taken some of that on.
Yes.
In terms of the three drummers from Australia, like there's Phil Rudd, Ryan, and there's the drummer in Rose Tattoo, the third drummer, Paul DeMarco.
Yes.
The three drummers of 4/4, basically, of Australia. There's other ones, obviously, like the drummer in Excess is another one, but there's a certain the drummer in John Farnham's band, Angus Birchall.
Yeah.
He drinks down the road. The drummers, 4/4 drummers, like the guy that just replaced in AC/DC, he was very
Oh,
good.
Matt Laug.
Yeah,
He
like
was
you know
phenomenal.
what happened, but he just like wow, like like I mean for to stand in like that, what a gig, what a show he put on.
And I just realized he opened for AC/DC back on the Stiff Upper Lip tour when he was with Slash's Snake Pit. I had no idea.
Yeah, okay, so this is it's a thing to understand the 4/4.
Yeah.
So and Ryan's affinity for AC/DC, I guess, is really understanding, in what it means to be the complete backbone to the band. And for Australian bands, we got to have that. We can't have drummers flailing around doing jazzy things and stuff like that. You got to hold that band rock solid. The whole room jumps to that beat.
Yeah.
And the whole band rocks to that beat. So if he goes too fast or he goes too slow, it affects everything. So he's very, as a timekeeper, these guys have got to be rock solid. And, you know, I've seen, like, we've played some big, like, festivals and stuff with big, you know, huge bands on the bill, and their drummers always come to watch Ryan.
That's
And, like,
awesome.
yeah, and these drummers, you know, they're very technically what they do, and they walk up to him and they say, like, you know, hey man, you know, like, you just hit that 4/4 dot go, you know, how do you do that? Just dum da dum da dum da the whole way, you know, and he just goes, oh,
Not easy.
you know, I just want to get to the beer. I want to get to my beer.
No, Ryan's got great swing. He
Yeah,
really
he loves
does.
it though. He acts like sometimes he acts like, yeah, he does. Sometimes he acts like he doesn't love it that much, but he does. When he's smiling and grinning, that's when he's flying. And when he's flying, the band's rocking. And that's when
awesome.
when we're all unstoppable, you know. So it's definitely an art form. It's the 4/4 drum.
Well, Joel, as you know, AC/DC Beyond the Thunder is a podcast where we talk to extraordinary fans who've been influenced by this extraordinary band. We've got actors and authors and comedians and war heroes, and even an episode with the late great Lemmy Kilmister right before he passed. So you seem to have figured out AC/DC's sound. But Joel, can you explain how AC/DC changed your life, and how has AC/DC affected so many people?
Oh, well, the way it's changed my life, AC/DC. I mean, if they hadn't come along, I don't know where I'd be or what I'd be doing. When I was in school, I was a little kid, you know, like I couldn't really play any sports, couldn't really do anything, but I wanted to do something. And having AC/DC on my Walkman in my ears, I reckon got me through all of that stuff. And when I would put those headphones in, I didn't like school at all. I didn't want to be there. Didn't like the whole vibe of it. I just felt always on the outside, outnumbered, or just didn't fit in. And a very quiet kid. And until I put AC/DC on my head, and then I'd listen. And then there was one point where I was doing a duck walk on the roof of the school. And stuff like that. I would just go off and do duck walks, and I'd go off and start rocking somewhere. I'd go off and listen to that, and I just listen to AC/DC over and over and over. Wherever I'm walking, I would just go for a massive walk for hours, just listening to AC/DC. AC/DC basically gave me a kind of a power just to be myself, because it gave me something. It gave me like a soundtrack. Like people say, it's a soundtrack to life kind of thing. Well, it really was. It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So without that, I don't know what, like, when that music comes on, it transforms. There was a study, I don't know if you've read this, you probably have, but there was a study where they tested a group of males. So they tested two groups. One group of males, they gave Red Bull. The other group of males, they gave, those three groups, they gave AC/DC, and then they gave the other group, like, nothing. And then they compared the testosterone levels. And the group that had like jazz music and stuff just was sort of plateauing. And the group that had the Red Bull, you know, went up a bit because they got the taurine and everything going. And the group that had AC/DC, they found that their testosterone levels had shot through the roof during that listening. And
Wow.
yeah,
That's fantastic.
So whatever is in that music, it literally gets you up and going. And I talk about this with Brady in our band. We talk about it, because we're fascinated by it. There's something we go, some people don't get it, and they don't get it. And we go, I feel bad for the people that don't get it. You know,
Yes.
Everyone on this channel, you know, everyone listening to this, I'm sure gets it. And you're so lucky. You're so lucky to be able to get what AC/DC is and feel that thing that it does. Because when it hits, it's like I've dabbled in a few drugs and things around the place, you know. I've been in a rock and roll band. I've been around, done this, but nothing hits like AC/DC. Nothing.
That's fantastic.
Like, it's the best feeling in the world, and you don't need anything else. And that's what I found in school and everything going as a kid, is that at the end of the day, you really don't need anything else. You only need AC/DC, and everything's cool.
Amen, brother. I loved everything you just said.
Very cool.
Well, before we let you go, what's next for Airborne? What can listeners expect?
Oh, we're writing a record. So we're writing songs. We're going to get a record recorded this year. we're putting everything into it. So it's different. It'll be different to the last one, where that one was written in the studio. This one, we're a lot more writing.
Awesome. Well, we can't wait to hear it.
Keep the thunder alive out there. It's rocking. I love listening to it on the road. It's great. It's like for an
Awesome.
AC/DC band, it's the shit, and I love it.
Thank you so much. Joel, we can't thank you enough for joining us from Australia to be part of the Top 10 special episode, and thank you, listeners, for voting. But we leave you with one final question, which is the question we ask all of our guests before we leave, is if you had to describe AC/DC in one word, what would yours be, Joel?
Power.
Yeah.
Power. Perfect. Power up.
Power up. Cheers, lads.
AC/DC Beyond the Thunder theme song, Trailer Trash, written and performed by Gannon Arnold. VO talent by Bruce Jacobson. Cinematography and sound recording by Greg Ferguson. Edited and mixed by Eric Keel. Written, directed, and hosted by Kurt Squires. Produced by Greg Ferguson, Eric Keel, and Kurt Squires. AC/DC Beyond the Thunder is a Squires LLC current motion production. Copyright Beyond the Thunder podcast, all rights reserved. This has been a Nat Attack presentation.
Shazbot Nanu Nana.